When I was a boy in the 50s, that's the 1950s, we spend the day before Ash Wednesday, Mardi Gras, in a family meeting, deciding what we were going to give up for Lent. That's how you all spend Mardi Gras as well, right? And it was sort of really a fruitless task because every year we came up with the same Lenten penance. We would give up candy for Lent. Very original. And I would give up especially the favorite thing in the whole world, Snickers candy bars. I tend to think I ate about 12 dozen of them on Mardi Gras just to make sure that I'd sort of be in withdrawal that whole time. But come Easter Sunday morning, forget jelly beans, forget chocolate rabbits. There I was with that Snicker candy bar in my hand, sort of smelling the delightful smell and letting those flavors of peanuts and caramel and chocolate and nougat just sort of come into my mouth for the first time since Lent began. And knowing that I did it. I did it. I kept away from what I loved most, not for 40 days. I was sort of a little precocious when I was young, for 46 days. Because my parents considered the Sundays of Lent to be Lent. The church might not, but Mom and Dad considered them to be Lent. So there I was. I had done it. I had kept my fast. I had kept my promise to God. I did it. And while I was letting those delightful flavors slip down my throat, I began realizing God was pretty good, really lucky to have somebody like me in the church. It's amazing. I didn't even need a serpent, but I spent those 46 days of Lent ending up more self-centered, more egocentric, more thinking about me, more prideful than I was on Mardi Gras. At that very young age, I was able to subvert the entire meaning of Lent. And maybe with that in mind, I listened to today's gospel. And realizing just what those temptations of Jesus might be all about, and just what they might mean to us over 2,000 years after the events talked about today, after the writing of Matthew's Gospel. Not by bread alone does one eat. It is interesting that fasting has been part of our Lenten discipline. Because what it has done is not to make ourselves realize how great, how good, how disciplined we are, but rather to re-establish again our own relationship with the created world. To realize that creation has an integrity outside of us. To realize that things are not there simply for us, but things are there with us for God. And to allow the fasting that we engage in during these 40 or maybe 46 days to be a re-establishment of right relationship with creation. A re-establishment of right relation that is so needed in the world today. I will give you power over all the kingdoms of the world. The devil tells Jesus, if you merely come and bow down at my feet. This desire for power over each other did not go away with the resurrection. And in fact, this will to power over one another sadly comes into almost all of our relationships, at least the temptation. And again, we are called to the discipline of almsgiving, that we might again realize that others are not those for whom we dominate, but rather sisters and brothers, all of us daughters and sons of our God. And again, that discipline of Lent calls us forth to again re-establish right relations with each other. One of the most frightening prayers, I think, is the Our Father. Because while we ask God for so many things in that prayer, there's only one that is qualified. Oh God, forgive us what we do exactly the way we forgive each other. There are days in which I am terrified to pray that prayer. Reestablish right relationships among us and our sisters and brothers. The devil tells Jesus, throw yourself down from the temple. Test God. See if God will keep God's word and protect you lest you dash your foot against a stone. The last of those disciplines of Lent is prayer. Prayer, not simply the saying of words, but prayer, again, establishing our right relationship with God. Knowing that God is God, and we are God's dear children, beloved by the Lord. That maybe God is not lucky to have me in the church, but I am sure lucky to be a son of God. The disciplines of Lent seem simple to talk about, a little bit more difficult to engage in, even more difficult to engage in correctly, so that they don't lead us like my little child in the 50s self to make myself bigger and more important, but to lead me into right relationship with creation, right relationship with my sisters and brothers, right relationship with God. But I tend to think if we allow that discipline to be understood correctly, then this time will indeed be a time of salvation. That this will indeed, like St. Paul said to us in today's second reading, be a time of grace and be a time of life. May God bless us all.